Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. You know, in recent years, the oversupply of CBD extracted from the U.S. grown hemp caused the price of CBD to plummet, and some CBD producers began to experiment. The result was the emergence of a chemical that's called DELTA-8 products being widely marketed and sold across the country with no regulatory oversight and limited laboratory testing. Most products sold as DELTA-8 THC typically contain a high percentage of DELTA-8 THC and small amounts of other cannabinoids, including DELTA-9 THC. And the reaction by products, and meaning reaction to the process of actually creating CBD8 or THC8, it produces some byproducts. And some of those cannabinoids are not naturally found in the cannabis plant. In most cases, nothing is known about the health effects of these impurities. My guest today is what you should call, and what I call, the Hemp-OG. He's here to discuss the potential pitfalls of DELTA-8 products on the industry, and he has been involved in the hemp industry since the early 1990s, folks, globally. And in 1994, he became the first person in modern times permitted to legally grow a hemp crop in the United States. That was way before the Farm Bill. And at the USDA Research Center in Brawley, California. In 2014, he established a large sustainable hemp farm in California to support his educational, commercial, and advocacy activities. And now, today, he's the CEO of Farmtiva, Inc., which breeds and sells CBD fiber and grain seeds. And he's also the co-founder of Juicetiva Hemp CBDA Powder. Chris Boucher, thank you so much, sir, for being a part of the show today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Montel. Always good to see you, man.
And I just said your last name was. Pronounce it for me, make sure I got it right. Boucher.
Boucher, like Bobby Boucher from The Waterboy.
I said Boucher, but Boucher. You're absolutely right.
My brother's name is Bobby Boucher. So
is it really?
Yeah.
That's wild. Well, thank you so much for being here, sir. I'm going to make sure I make a complete 100% disclosure right here to all of our viewers. I have been using your Juicetiva products now since your first appearance on the show, about a week after that. So it's been for easily 60 days. And I got to tell you, it is a go-to product for me on a daily basis. I would suggest anybody who has been utilizing CBD to switch over to your product. So let's just jump right off from the top and tell them, where can they get Juicetiva?
Juicetiva.com. Juicetiva, like sativa, but Juicetiva. Or go to farmtiva.com, but either website. And we're doing a blowout sale right now. You put the Montel in there, your code, and it's like 50% off. So we just want people to try it and use it.
People need to get to it. I'm telling you, I have a little trepidation sometimes when people introduce products to me and they give me something, or, I go out and buy something, I'll use it for a couple of days. Sometimes I feel like it takes me 4 or 5 days to get beyond the placebo effect to really understand what it is I'm feeling. And I will tell you that, after about 7 days of usage, I started to notice some things that were really different in my overall sense of well-being. So I think we'll be able to explain to people why CBDA is so much better than CBD by itself. But you got me hooked. I'm sold. So, and thank you so much for offering up our listeners and viewers an opportunity to get a little discount.
Well, that's awesome. We've been, since day one, the last 30 years, we've just been trying to change the world and change the way people think about hemp and cannabis and well-being, and just producing something that makes people feel good and helps the environment. So that's our core attitude.
Absolutely. We were talking before we started taping about the fact that people don't have to start to understand. We've heard the term thrown around a lot, superfood. They throw it around for everything from mushrooms to, spinach to you name it. But I got to tell you, I really think that the cannabis plant, with THC or without, is a superfood. And so for you to be able to produce a product like this, which doesn't have THC in it, but has all the other minor cannabinoids in it, and has is this bioavailable, that's pretty phenomenal, my friend.
It is, and we have to start getting around the idea that cannabinoids are not just medicine; they're nutrients. And so
Absolutely.
these cannabinoids affect your gut. And the entire health industry now is leaning towards this whole movement. If your gut isn't healthy, your brain isn't healthy. So you have
Correct.
this gut to brain health. And guess what receptors in your stomach that produces 80% of your serotonin is produced in your stomach, your 5-HT1 receptor. And that's where the CBDA actually goes to. And we can talk about the other cannabinoids, what they do in the stomach. And the most important thing is the oils. A lot of the cannabinoids are in oils and lipids and waxes, and so they're not that digestible. Where when you have a raw juice or a freeze-dried powder that's water soluble, it's completely bioavailable, and the uptake and the absorption of the nutrients and the cannabinoids is like 100x over oils. So, I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but that's where we're kind of really leaning towards this gut to brain health and looking at the cannabinoids and CBDA as nutrients, not as a drug or a medicine.
Absolutely. And I think most people need to just lock on to what you were saying. The fact that you put it in a powder form, not an oil form, makes it 100 times more bioavailable.
It's about 18 times more bioavailable than
Okay.
an oil. So if you're comparing it to an isolate, maybe 100 times more than an isolate. If it's a water soluble based oil, if it's a liposomal, there's different kinds of now CBD products that are trying to become more water soluble. And they get it. They're like, we want our product to be, have more efficacy, meaning more bioavailability. Because if your
Yeah.
body doesn't absorb it, what good is it? It's like
Right.
when you take a vitamin C pill, you get what, 15% or 12% of the vitamin C in it. And again, back to the vitamin C pill, like I call it, like some of these isolates, it's like calling a vitamin C pill an orange. When you call an isolate or a CBD molecule, oh, it's hemp. It's an isolated molecule, 99.9%. Where is the other, plant matter in there? It's not there. So this is evolving as we speak, the whole market and the way we look at it, the way we talk about it. Like you said, with the D8, the D9, the THC, and how this whole thing is evolving into, I call it the hemp wars.
Yeah, almost. You really are nailing it, because the truth is that when you're taking a look at hemp-based CBD, well, first off, you get most of the CBD from your CBDA from the leaves of the plant, correct?
The leaves and the flower. So there's so many different stages of the plant's life. When you grow, hemp, cannabis sativa, it's all the same. It goes through, a 60 to a 90-day process up into a 120-day process. And as it's growing, it has more water content, it's more moist, it has more, certain cannabinoids in the beginning, and they all kind of convert the last 45 days of the plant's life. It hardens off, it loses its water, and it starts producing, more resinous cannabinoids, where we try to capture them before the molecules change over. So where it's the highest point of CBDA or CBGA, and plus the water is higher content within the plant, and the flower and the leaves are much more water soluble.
And so people understand, you were just talking about CBG. For those that are listening and tuning in, don't have a lot of cannabis knowledge. We think that there's probably, it could be as many as 400, 500 cannabinoids. We don't know. I mean, I think you listen to science in the United States, they say 60 to 100. Listen to people in Canada, they say 400 to 600. I don't know, but those cannabinoids are all component parts of that same plant, and they all, as we do more research, we're going to find out that more and more of them together in combination or single, they literally have different effects.
Yes, and the more research is done, the more we know. We've had so many different companies do their own independent research, and even looking at the flavonoids and the omega fatty acids that are in there, the amino acids, vitamin C, vitamin D, B1, B12, B6. I could go magnesium, iron. I mean, come on, this is the superfood of superfoods, but
It really is.
we
And
just
people
got to
need
get into all the supermarkets and get it into the, the
mainstream.
7-Elevens and
Yeah, get it mainstream because people and get people to understand that they don't have to fear it. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's go ahead and talk about this war that's ravaging across the nation, especially in the industry. Because I'm telling you, 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, when THC-8 first was not first, THC was first. We should make sure people understand THC-8 is a naturally occurring cannabinoid within the sativa cannabis plant, though it appears or occurs at very, very finite amounts, like right down to 0.11, 1.1 or 1.5%, right? What do you know?
yes, yeah, depending on what genetics, there's certain
Right.
genetics now that you get at genetics that are 15% THCA and they're like 0.2% Delta-9.
Right.
And they're selling it as hemp because in certain states they only test for Delta-9. But yeah, there's a huge issue going on in that particular space.
Right. So therefore, since THC-8 is a naturally occurring cannabinoid, but we found out that because of the overproduction of hemp and when we were producing so much hemp that it became bumper and there's just so much product that people weren't able to move it, some industrious individuals, I'll call them that way, looked at CBD and thought, there is a way to chemically push this into Delta-8. Is that not how this whole Delta-8 thing really took off?
Exactly, Montel. Was just such an oversupply of so the laboratories. We have to realize it's the laboratories that control the entire industry because they're the ones that are making CBD. They're making D8, THC. They're buying it for pennies from the farmers. That's why the price plummeted. So they were able to use a little, I'd say, old lab technology, certain chemicals and acids that you can take a CBD isolate, which is 99.9% CBD. It's no longer hemp. It's just it's a pharmaceutical molecule.
Right.
And you pour some acids and different chemicals in there and you spin it around. And if you know what you're doing, you can make a Delta-8, which gets you high. And so I
And
call it the get high molecules.
I'm sorry, when you say what gets you high, because most people understand that Delta-9 is the one that is primarily what we've heard of for years now, and that's the THC that they test for, that the Euphoria comes from. Some say the Euphoria is not equivalent to Delta-9. Some say that it's stranger than Delta-9. Some say that they've even had effects that have been more euphoric than Delta-9. Where do you follow that spectrum?
I try to put it in simple terms. The D8 is like a Michelob Light or a Bud Light, and THC is like a IPA, Sierra Nevada, or one has 1% alcohol and the other one has 9%. So when you do Delta-8, and I've tried it, and many people have, and yeah, it's a weird buzz, but the word buzz, people love to get high or feel euphoric, no matter what it is.
They've been doing this since the dawn of man. That's the reason why we have alcohol, wine. Remember, people need to remember every place that Jesus went, somebody broke wine out.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, even turned water into wine, right?
That's another story. We won't go down that road yet.
We won't go down that road. But I mean, I'm only pointing to the fact that euphoria has been part of societies since the dawn of man.
Yes, and if you can sell that Euphoria in a D8 and you can sell it legally through a loophole in the law without any regulation, without any testing in a gas station, a head shop, I mean, they sell it all over the internet. I mean, you go on there now and you look up hemp and everything's D8. And I believe, and again, I'm all about, hey, if it's legal, you can do it no matter what. They need to change the law. However, it's misrepresenting the word hemp, because how can you take a molecule and call it hemp? And I believe the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is Truth in Labeling and Product. And they kind of did it in the bamboo industry years back. But I believe they're starting to look at, well, they're calling this product hemp. And that's underneath the FTC. It's not legal to call something unless it's 50% contents of that product. And from being in the hemp textile industry for 25 years, importing hemp textiles, we had to deal with the federal government every time we brought a container of hemp fabric in, and when we registered it with the federal government, we could only call it hemp fabric if it had more than 51% hemp content, and the rest could be 58% polyester or cotton. So knowing that, I've heard some rumors that they're going to start looking at that. Why are you calling this hemp and there's no hemp in it? So
right. And then when we take a look at when the people who are these industrious lab rats who are formulating these concoctions to see if they can push CBD to DELTA-8, they also get a little DELTA-9 at the same time, do they not?
Yes. So basically, CBD is a precursor. So before you get to D8 and before you get to DELTA-9, it's always starts out as CBG, then CBD. So they can tweak it to D8, they can tweak it to D9 THC, and I mean they're getting for the DELTA-8, they're getting I think 6,000 or 7,000 a kilo for this stuff. For DELTA-9, chemically made, THC from hemp, they're getting I think 12 or 15,000. I could be mistaken because the prices change every day. So the entire market is just eating this stuff up, and the traditional CBD that's been sitting in warehouses for years is now getting gobbled up into the laboratories to create these get high molecules. And you can look at what CV Sciences, you can look at, Bluebird, you can look at all these WebMD, CBD. They're all going D8 and DELTA-9 hemp-derived THC. I don't think they're all going D8, but a lot of them are going after the DELTA-9 THC also, which is chemically made.
DELTA-9 that's been created from a different cannabinoid.
Chemically created from CBD.
So, I mean, can we really even call that DELTA-9? Is it molecularly the same? It can't be.
Yeah, so if you laid it out, it's called a molecular weight. So if you laid it out on a graph, the molecule that you're spinning in the VAP rotors to make it would the finished product would be a DELTA-8 molecule with nothing else in it, but it was chemically made from CBD isolate. Again, they pour a different set of chemicals to convert the CBD into hemp THC.
Yes, and so just so people know that these aren't chemicals that have been, certified by anybody as being safe. A, B, we don't, though DELTA-9 products sold at legitimate pharmacies or dispensaries and cannabis outlets do go through in most states some form of testing, not all. But we don't know and have not really looked at COAs or certificates of analysis on DELTA-8 products. So we don't know what some of that residual stuff is that's left over after the process, and don't know how harmful that would be. Why hasn't the DEA or the FDA stepped in and said, hold on a second, anything that's been chemically pushed from one product to another is illegal? What do you know?
So that's a good question. And they did do that. And there was a landmark case that went to the Ninth Court of Appeals not too long ago, I think about 6 or 8 months ago, and had to do with Kentucky. They said D8 is illegal. You can't make it. It's an intoxicant. And bottom line, in the Farm Bill, it specifically says all derivatives and isomers of hemp. So when you read the law kind of says it's legal, even though we don't like it in terms of it's intoxicant. Anyone can buy it at any gas station. But what I'm seeing is the whole cannabis industry, especially California, Colorado, they've teamed up with law enforcement and politicians to try to snuff this out because it's really affecting their sales. When you can, like you said, you have a legitimate cannabis business and you've gone through all these regulations, you've paid millions of dollars in fees or whatever, and the gas station across the street is selling a DELTA-8 or a THC and hemp-derived intoxicant, and you lose sales, and it's like like say having a liquor store and the guy across the street selling his own, handmade beer and handmade, alcohol. That would
Right.
never fly in the face of the law. But I think it's enforcement. They just haven't had the budget, maybe. So there's a lot of questions there. Why aren't they doing anything about it? But they are with the new laws. They're actually, again, that's another subject we can go down. They're passing laws in every state to limit the quality of hemp CBD because of D8 and because of hemp THC.
Well, I mean, that's scary because at the end of the day, this is really going. How do you think it's going to impact the entire industry? Because
Oh,
I literally, again, I'm just going off of anecdotal stories that I've heard and seen and heard people say directly to me that they had a really bad experience with Delta-8 about a week ago, or yeah, I tried some Delta-8 somebody gave me and it was really bad. Thought it was terrible. I've had people say that to me, like over and over and over again, and it's going to require some sort of over some over control, or somebody's going to have to step in and say that maybe this isn't the smartest thing we as an industry should have been doing. Maybe the industry should have said this.
Yes, and I think the industry is kind of skewed because there's so many publicly traded companies and big corporations that they're in it for their shareholder value. They need the revenue. And if they can sell this stuff and it's legal, they're going to sell it. Most people don't really have an efficacy in their corporate bylaws, like this is who we are, this is our motive, and so when you're selling this chemical derived product, and I'm not going to name names, but I've seen these companies and I said, man, this violates your whole terms of who you are and your efficacy of providing a hemp product that's going to help people. You're selling an intoxicant. Yeah, and D8 people, definitely it's a different kind of high, and some people get sick on it. And there's so many smaller labs that are making it, and I'll also go back to the labs. There are some
You're
labs.
being generous. You're being generous when you say smaller labs. And
Yeah,
people put it in their garages and their basements. But go ahead.
yeah, some labs won't touch it, and there's actually a couple good articles that they've had a few of the bigger labs analyze D8 and really explain how it's made and how bad it is in terms of the chemicals and if it's not made right. All these issues that you would think, wait a sec, this is not regulated and people are consuming this, and it just kind of brings down the whole industry. Now we're having this huge split in the hemp industry. It's like the fiber and CBD wars. If you're not into hemp fiber and you're into CBD, and everyone's just lost in the woods.
Right.
And I'm trying to bring people together and say, look, just erase everything that you think and look at where the successful business models are, like in Europe, where they're growing fiber and CBD on the same plant. They're using dual crops and tri-crops. And so here in the United States, the CBD and the D8 has gotten such a bad name. It's really created this divide, I would think. And so that's concerning to look at the future and going, wait a sec, we're not going to have dual crops like the Europeans. And, they're ahead of the game.
It's concerning to me because I've been in a few dispensaries where they have Delta-8 products in the dispensary sitting relatively close to Delta-9 products.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why would you do this to yourself? I just think this is an opportunity for the industry to let the DEA just pounce down on our heads.
They will. I mean, they definitely, I think once their enforcement and once they get a legal notification, they've already classified it as they've put it into category that makes it illegal. But again, it's interesting how
That and
their
that's
enforcement.
isn't that a follow up to a law that was passed? I don't know, 20 years ago, when I remember when all over the East Coast, especially in New York and up and down, a lot of the bodegas were selling this crap called spice, which is a chemically altered bag of oregano, basically.
Yes, and so the labs and the people that were making it, they were just tweaking the molecule by one molecule, and every time they would tweak it by one molecule, they would be ahead of the DEA, and the DEA would have to literally they had 10 different laws for 10 different kinds of synthetic THC, which was public knowledge from Israel when Dr. Meshulam, he published quite a bit of synthetic CBD monologues, and people had access to them, and like I said, you could just change the molecule once, and it's not illegal, and so this is going to be an interesting one because, like I said, I think it's that particular language in the Farm Bill that they're trying to change now, and they will change it. But at the same time, there's just, you got the FDA coming out with false information. And again,
let's talk a little bit about that, because that was interesting, because in order to change the law, the FDA is using information that's really just a scare tactic, right?
Yes. I mean, recently they just were up on Capitol Hill and they were telling the senators that, hey, CBD is harmful. We tested it on monkeys. They tested it on these Reeses Monkeys, and they gave them like 20 or 30,000 milligrams doses, and it killed them. And so they're going, look at it, damaged their liver. And it's the same mentality. I don't know if you remember, This Is Your Brain on Drugs, and it showed the monkeys smoking, cannabis with the mask on. Well, they were suffocated and murdered, and their brainwave just went dead. And they used the brainwave, and eventually that became illegal. They were sued, say this is false information. You killed these monkeys with pot smoke in a gas mask. That's not, true to what you're saying, because there's some truth in advertisement.
Sure.
And they're doing the same thing here, and for some reason we don't know why they're using these studies from 1980s, like I said, and overdosing. I mean, if you drank too much water, you could kill somebody.
Correct. I don't think there's ever been, from just normal, when I say normal, because it was just even heavy consumption of cannabis, I don't think there's been a death from the cannabis itself, right? I think there's
nothing that we know of.
One death, I guess, they registered in California that had something to do with a mold that was on the cannabis, but it wasn't the cannabis that did it, was the mold. And it was the mold that hurt this individual because the person already had a precondition that made them more susceptible to mold poisoning. So that's the only one that I've ever heard of. That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But it's gotten crazy where, I've been also in conversations with people who defend THC-8 like it's their right. And I'm like, well, slow down. It's not your right to take, under-the-counter chemicals and smash them around in a rotovap and then pour it out and say, oh, I've created something that's really not harmful. We don't even know because they're not testing it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if it gets you high and you can make money, and that's kind of this primitive attitude we're seeing. And like I said, I'm so surprised these huge companies are doing this, and they've just gone out in left field. And again, it's money changes people, and as the industry's imploding, how do we make more money? We'll sell rat poison to the kids if we can do it for with legally. I mean, it's just ironic, and as this thing moves forward, what's going to be the next chemical they come out with? Because now there's D10, D8, D9, THCO.
THCO, and THCO is a definite non-naturally occurring cannabinoid, right?
Yes.
That's something that somebody's just pushed to cause a euphoria, and we don't have any idea what that's doing to the endocannabinoid system. Don't know what receptors are picking that up. Don't know how that's actually operating or functioning in the body.
Yeah, it's mimicking cannabinoids in a sense through a synthetic analog. So I think, we're going to see, I think, more enforcement. We're probably going to see more laws in each state. But like I was saying, it's affecting CBD now. Like in Colorado, you can't have a package with more than 1.5 milligrams of THC in it. That means you'd have like a 3-pack of gummies. Or Virginia, same way. You'd have to sell 1 gummy per package because they've limited the amount of hemp-derived THC 0.3 to the actual unit, where currently you could have 0.3% in each dose and have 60 doses in a bottle. That's not going to happen anymore. And it really affects the tinctures. Some of these really high quality 20 to 1, 10 to 1 tinctures that I think you're very familiar with. In the hemp space, they'll be illegal because that 30 milliliter or 60 milliliter tincture will have more than 0.3% THC in the entire bottle, even though each dose is much less. So it's affecting the packaging, it's affecting the sales. And now they're selling CBD behind the counter in a locked box. How's that for business?
That's crazy. So, I mean, what do you think the industry has to do to be, more responsibly safe?
It's just really coming up, I think, back to the health, back to the nutrients, back to the vitamins. What is this doing for your health? And what's happened is, and I'm getting this information from a lot of store managers from health food stores. I do a lot of in-store demos with our hemp juice, and I talk to the wellness and vitamin managers of the store, and they're like, "Man, what's up? What's wrong with you guys, man? Your whole industry, and it's just not the DEA." They're like, "This should be the gummy industry, the hemp gummies. Everything is gummies, gummies, gummies. They're not health and wellness. They're loaded with sugars and pectins." And, I mean, I could go on. I mean, it's not a health and wellness product. Sure, they taste great. You got diabetes, or you're trying to cut your sugar back, and gummies are good, man. They're addicting. I'd take 2 of them. Next thing you know, I'm popping 6 of them, trying to go to sleep at night. And it's just, and they're loaded with gelatin or pectins. And so the store owners are telling me, like, these really aren't like health and wellness products, because they like real clean and pure products, not adulterated with sugars and pectins and gelatin. And you know what gelatin is.
Of course, yeah. So, I mean, where do we go from here, Chris? I mean, how do we? First off, we're talking about an industry that really won't talk to each other. We don't have those kinds of conversations. So, we're going to wait until the Fed comes in and regulates, or are we going to try to do something to clean this up ourselves?
Yeah, I think, and that's what we need to do. I mean, it's almost like going back to lobbying in DC, but that's just, as you know, that's a long road to walk, man. And there's everybody in there, the elbow room. It's, I paid 20 grand to get into this room. I paid 50, my company, this and that. But, it's what senators really, people in Congress really, really care. But it's like, logic is out the door these days. It's more this, polarized, government that, but it's obviously a lot of people want to come together for the cannabis, the Banking Act and stuff like that. But
while we see all of this ridiculousness here, in lots of the countries outside of the United States that have now legalized either medical or some sort of cannabis, I maybe I'm wrong. You tell me, but I think somebody told me that, is it Isle of Man or is it Spain where DELTA-8 is illegal?
I think it's happened in quite a few countries. I have heard of that in Spain, because Spain's a really big cannabis country, and they have all the clubs there. And Europeans are pretty conscious on health stuff, chemicals, environmental. They're definitely more conscious, I think, at some level than Americans. But we're seeing in many states they're outlawing DELTA-8. They're just saying, no, we don't want it. But the trade-off, not the trade-off, but I don't know the correct word, the dichotomy of it is that they can't enforce it, because if they did enforce it, the Ninth Court of Appeals has already said, well, technically it is legal, but it's a battle that is being fought. And like I said, states are really clamping down, and especially here in California also, they've outlawed it. But it's everywhere. No one's enforcing it. I go into a store and they have DELTA-8 everywhere, and they got hemp-derived THC, and the guy's like, hey man, this is my bread and butter. It's not just these big companies that are the manufacturers and the distributors. You've got thousands of head shops and pipe shops and gas stations. Like right now as we speak, the Champ show in Las Vegas is going on. It's the largest, I'd say, alternative pipe store, gas station, retail store in the country. So all your Delta-8 people there, your Delta-9, your Kratom, everyone's in Vegas this week to sell their stuff to, across America and across the country. And it's amazing if you see every company there. And it used to be glass pipes and bongs and, rolling papers and hemp stuff. I did it for years, but now it's they should call it the Delta-8 show.
Wow. Well, then, well, hopefully, just by educating and letting people know, if you're buying a THCA product, it is buyer beware, correct?
Buying a hemp-derived, called hemp-derived THC, Delta-9 or Delta-8, it should say right on there how it's made. It's made with this acid, it's made with this acetone, and it should say how it's made. It's like if you make something, you put olive oil in it, you put sugar in it, where's your formula?
Right.
And so there's no regulation to disclose how it's made. It's just, people see THC and their brain has been so, programmed to go, oh, get high, THC, I'm going to buy that. And so, like I said, I was in a couple stores and, you see on the box, it says CBD and now it says THC. And I never thought that I would see the day that you would see that in a regular store. But
Right.
however, like I mentioned earlier, the pot shops and the cannabis dispensaries, they're furious. They're
Correct.
like, you guys, they're
And very
yelling
well
at me until I said, man, look at man, I'm just the messenger, man. Don't kill me.
right. And they should be, yeah. Well, then tell me, let's change topics for a second. But what's coming down the pike for Farmtiva and for
You know,
GP?
So yes, so we're developing these genetics that we can grow all year round um, out here in California in certain geographical regions, mainly in the South. And we can produce these high, small, bushy CBD varieties that are very low in THC and high in CBDA. And then we have the CBGA, really high cannabidiol plants, and we're producing these genetics, like I said, so we can harvest them and we can process in the field. We've developed some new juice machines. We've got a new high-tech freeze dry equipment, and we're trying to put it all together. But it's like, what comes first, the cart or the horse? So we're building this cart, man. That's just like, it's the bomb. And then and we're looking at going into the cannabis industry too, but maybe make some, cannabis juice from a nice high variety. But the cost to grow cannabis compared to hemp, it would just make it, triple the price. And speaking of price, by Farmtiva and Juicetiva combining our whole processing and all of our equipment, we want to drop the price down to where it costs somebody $1 a day to drink this.
Right.
And we're trying to target also the Jamba juices. We're trying to target all the different Smoothie Kings, all these all these juice bars that already sell hemp seeds and hemp seed oil, hemp protein. Hey, you put some hemp juice powder in there. So we think it's going to be really massive in that sense, that it could go not just, in health food stores and juice bars, but also as an ingredient supply for other people who want to put it in their, in their capsules, or they put it in their, their mushroom mix, you name it. But that's kind of where our direction is to build this infrastructure out to make it more affordable and to make it a common product. And on top of that, we've done some sprouting. We've been working with a company to produce these really low temperature sprouts, and that have really high, amazing enzymes, and trying to do that on a large scale and deal with the regulations of growing hemp. Because if you sprout, doesn't matter, you have to get it tested all the time. So the testing could really make it expensive. So we might have to change some of the laws there. And we've done some leafy greens. We've had a few of the big companies produce some salads. And again, it's the right variety. So the leaf is softer. It doesn't taste like a cat's tail. It's juicier. There's a couple things we could do to it to make it more palatable and things of that nature. So we're really going to the food and the nutrition. And also the cannabinoids, but more nutrient cannabinoid focused rather than medicinal.
Right. Well, I think you'll definitely be a leader in that vein in the industry when you do this.
Well, yeah, well, we're trying. It's definitely every day we're in a battle with when we try to sell our hemp juice. It's like we're competing against hemp THC, hemp D8, and hemp gummies. And so
Right.
now my new joke is when I talk to health food stores, I said, "Oh, by the way, I'll have to apologize that we don't make any gummies." And they
Right.
kind of roll their eyes back and they get it. They're like, yes, please,
Right.
no gummies.
No, for sure. Well, my friend, thank you so much for being a part of the show today, and thanks for to school with everybody. I think people need to understand and get involved. I mean, this is one of these things where I really would hope that the industry would just stop, do a reset, and say, let's get this right so that it doesn't shut it down for everybody.
Exactly. And I think that's what we need to do. I didn't mention, I'm also a director on the Hemp Farmers Guild, and we're a farming group, a nonprofit that we support and promote hemp farmers. And I think that's kind of where um, we need to, like these associations now, don't have as much, I'd say, influence in politics as we used to, because you need money to go to Sacramento. You need money to go to DC.
And too
It's
many,
not
but too many people in it, but too many people in the industry is taking that money by make sure they got their third Mercedes and their fourth boat. Stop that stupid and start going back to doing what's going to help you actually make those boats or make the money for a boat 2 years from now. Start lobbying again, because that's really where I think we've
Yeah,
lost touch.
exactly. I mean, that's what we need to do, is start lobbying from the grassroots, from the farmer's perspective, from the people that are on the farm growing it, not these giant corporations. Okay, we have to protect their publicly traded stocks, and I get that, but at the end of the day, it's a trickle down. We call it trickle up. We want it
Right.
to trickle up from the farmer, and he has the advantage, or she has the advantage, or whomever is growing it, whether they're veterans, whether they're family farmers, whether they're minorities, whether they're, even a corporation. So these are the roots, I think, the foundation of our country or our state and of our industry is the farmer.
Right.
And once we lose the farmer, we lose the whole basis of the economy, I think. And so I really support that. And like I said, Hemp Farmers Guild, you can go to the California Hemp Farmers Guild.org and see what we're all about too, and help us promote, hemp farming.
Absolutely. And one more time, give them the stats on the other two websites. So,
Juicetiva.com, with Juicetiva, juicetiva.com. Go there and put Montel. Put in Montel, and we'll give you a 35% discount right off the top, free shipping.
And I'm gonna tell you, I'm very proud to let you go ahead and do that for me, sir. I appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
We'll keep talking about it, okay? And I
Thank you,
definitely
sir.
want to have you back so we can keep this conversation going, okay?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, my friend. You stay well. Love that family of yours. Take care of yourself. And you keep tuning in to Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.